So with that background, let's turn to Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. She is joining us from Austin, Texas, an immigration attorney. Kate, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So what more can you tell us about Mahmoud Khalil and why he's being detained? There really seems to be the issue of free speech versus what he was speaking about.
Right, and I think there's, information missing here potentially, but here's what we know. He was a leader of pro-Palestine protests at Columbia University. He is a green card holder. He's a permanent resident. He's married to a U.S. citizen. His wife is pregnant with their child, and DHS came to his home and detained him and did not tell his wife or his lawyer where he was initially. We also know he's not been convicted of any crimes, and of course, as we heard from the speaker, DHS, the leadership perspective is the argument that he is supportive of terrorist organizations like Hamas. I have seen or heard no evidence of that, only claims from people like the speaker.
So why is he being detained in Louisiana, not closer to home in New York or New Jersey?
This is actually very common that when people get detained, they are whisked away to other detention centers, often very far from their families and from their attorneys. It's part of a very concerning behavior on the part of the government. I think really all of us should be concerned. I mean, regardless of where you fall on this, I think difficult, divisive political issue. This is clearly the government going after someone who is exercising their constitutional right of free speech. And there is no indication that he had a criminal history, and this is a person who had a green card. It's not a student visa, someone who has permanent residence in the United States. And I think it really should concern all of us that the government is responding this way, regardless of how you feel about, Israel-Palestine.
Well, let me underscore that point, because the president on Truth Social referring to him as a radical foreign pro-Hamas student, saying his detainment was the first arrest of many to come. But again, to your point, an arrest not for any criminal activity, simply by exercising his First Amendment, our First Amendment rights to free speech. Am I missing something?
No, I mean, you nailed it, and it should give all of us a bit of a knot in our stomach that our government is willing to do this. I think their argument is going to be that someone who's a green card holder can be found to be deportable for espousing terrorism even without a conviction. But again, I haven't seen no evidence that Mahmoud Khalil was espousing terrorism, only claims of that by, Trump and his administration.
So we're hearing from the White House. We just heard from Speaker Mike Johnson that more is on the way. How concerned should these individuals be? If you have a green card, you want to exercise your right of free speech to do so peacefully. Do you face the real possibility, like Khalil, that you're going to be sent to a detention facility and possibly sent back to your home country?
I want to say no, because the last thing that I want to see, and I know a lot of Americans feel this way, is that people start to feel silenced and that they can't exercise their free speech. I mean, that is, the beginning of the end if we all start being quiet. On the other hand, it does appear that just by virtue of participating in an arrest, someone who is not a U.S. citizen was detained and taken away from his family when his wife is 8 months pregnant to another state, and she wasn't even told where he was. So does that also mean that someone who exercises their free speech under this administration could face some serious consequences? I think obviously the answer to that is yes.
We are talking to Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. She is obviously an immigration attorney and expert, joining us from Austin, Texas. And just to give our listeners a sense of how Republicans are doubling down on all of this, we heard from Speaker Johnson. Here's another Republican from Louisiana, Senator John Kennedy.
Well, Mr. Khalil will receive due process because by now his lawyer has already filed a writ of habeas corpus. Mr. Khalil was involved in the protests. He was a Columbia student under the Immigration and Naturalization Act. If you support a terrorist organization, you can be deported. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Mr. Khalil's side of the story, I understand to be that I don't support Hamas. I just support Palestinians. All I did was file some, or post some Facebook posts. I wasn't involved in any of the illegal protests or the illegal occupation of student buildings or physically intimidating the Jewish people and Jewish students. We'll find out who's right.
So, Kate, as you hear that, that's again the sentiment from Republicans and from the president. Your response is what?
You know, it's similar. If all that he did was march in protest and exercise his free speech, it doesn't matter. It should not matter whether anyone agrees with him, including the current administration, and it is illegal and unconstitutional for him to be detained and taken away from his family. And there has been no evidence whatsoever released that he was a supporter of Hamas, that he was terrorizing Jewish students, or any of these other claims that they're making. So maybe evidence will come out. I personally have seen none of it, and as it appears to me at this moment, this seems to be an unconstitutional detention on the part of the U.S. government.
In our final half a minute, it almost seems reminiscent for those who studied the 1950s and McCarthyism in this country. Is that a fair analogy, or is that going too far?
I don't think it's going too far. I think we're all feeling that way in this descent into whatever you want to call it. Is it fascism? I don't know. But again, I think those of us who are feeling concerned are right to feel this way. This is one of the biggest actions that I've seen the Trump administration take so far in this direction, and I think we should all be watching very closely and not allowing this to go down on our watch.
And we will indeed. Hey, Kate, thank you so much for joining us. We will check in with you as the story continues to unfold.